Hello, everyone. It's good to see that we have a pretty decent crowd already. Uh, Very good to have you all back. I'm just going to wait a minute more and get started for you all. But yeah, thanks for showing up. All right, Stephanie, if you are ready to go, we can get started.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So today we are going to be talking about content best practices. We've done content best practice calls before, but we've really focused on email content. So today what we're going to do is we are going to combine some content best practices for email outreach as well as LinkedIn steps within campaigns. We've noticed that on a lot of these calls or training sessions, a lot of our customers and attendees have been asking about LinkedIn and what's the best way to reach out to people. So we thought, how about we combine the two? So that's what we're going to focus on today. Just a couple of quick notes before we get started. Right now, our LinkedIn steps within a campaign, they are semi-automated. It's best utilized in tandem with our Chrome extension. We're not going to necessarily go over functionality today, and we've done that on a few calls in the past. So today we really just want to spend our time focusing on content and really how you can optimize your campaigns with your content. Another thing I want to mention is we are looking to introduce full LinkedIn automation. We don't have an ETA just yet. We were kind of crossing our fingers, hoping that it would be released by today and we could do our call on that today, but that's not the case. So it has been pushed back a couple of weeks. So as soon as we have that full LinkedIn automation released, we'll probably do another session about that. If you have any questions, feel free to enter them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. What we're going to do today is kind of go through all of the content that we want to cover, and we'll get to all of our questions at the end. So like I said, put those questions in that Q&A section and we'll get to them towards the end of our session today. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of start by just going through some campaign configuration, utilizing both email and LinkedIn steps. So Josh, I believe you were going to pull up your screen because my laptop is being super slow today.
Indeed. Here we go. Can we see everything?
Yes, we can.
All righty.
Okay, perfect. So this campaign that we've created for this session today, it's really kind of the optimal configuration that you want to utilize with LinkedIn and email steps. So you will notice that that first step in the campaign is a view profile. The reason that we put a view profile as that first step in your sequence is because if you are creating a campaign, and we'll kind of dive into this in step one, email, if you're creating a campaign where the content that you're using is anything along the lines of, hi, John, I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, blah, 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 having that view profile and having that prospect see that you view the profile, it looks like you've done your research. They don't know that the process is automated or semi-automated. So it really does look like you've taken the time to check out their profile and really see, why they would be a good fit for them, the messaging that you're sending to them. Also, it works really well in terms of name recognition. So if someone is in their LinkedIn account, they see the people that have viewed their profiles. When they go to their inbox and they get that first step email from you, they're probably more likely to click on that email because they recognize the name. They've seen it before. So that's why we put a view profile as that first step in your campaign sequence.
For just before you continue on here, we do have it set to day 2. You can play around with the days a little bit. Typically, if you're going to do the view profile on day 1, you want the second step or your first email step to be as close in proximity as possible. So you could even venture to do the email on the same day. It doesn't necessarily need to be day 2. But yeah, sorry for that.
So our step 2 of the sequence is an email step. And Josh is going to go over the content in a couple of minutes, and we just kind of want to get through the setup. So step 2 is an email. You'll notice quickly that we did do an A/B test, so we can get to that in a second. Step 3, we put a LinkedIn connection request. So again, you do that view profile, you send that first step email saying, hey, I saw on your LinkedIn profile XYZ. And then that third step they're going to get from you is a LinkedIn connection request. So now is a chance that you can, connect with them on LinkedIn. Again, it's a really great way for them to kind of recognize your name. With the LinkedIn connection, you can insert a personal message. You can make it as personal as you want. Step 4, we put another email in the sequence, as well as step 5. Typically, when we're talking about content, if we're talking about a campaign that's strictly emails, we do recommend 4 to 6 steps per campaign. You'll notice with this campaign, I think we have a total of 8, right, Josh?
We do.
Okay, perfect. So what we've done is step 4 and step 5 are emails. So again, Josh will go into this in a couple of minutes, but with those emails, you're really just circling back and kind of following up on the last messages that you sent via email if they haven't replied to you. Step 6 is a LinkedIn message, which, like I said before, it is semi-automated. So in this message, you can kind of insert something like you see right here. I've been trying to get in touch with you about include a variable, something very short to the point. Again, you can insert your call to action, but just another way to kind of connect with them on LinkedIn beyond that view profile and that connection request. And then for step 7 and step 8, both are emails. You will notice though that as you kind of go through the sequence with the different emails that you have, the delays between those days of emails, they are a bit longer. So at the top of the campaign, they're closer together. Down at the end, you'll see right there between step 7 and step 8, we have about a 9-day delay in between those emails. And that last email, the step 8, is obviously what we call the breakup email, which Josh will go over now.
Exactly. And yeah, I see someone has already thrown in a question there. We are going to try to get through everything first and then tackle questions specifically at the end. Maybe we'll touch on them accidentally on the way through, but we will be getting to them at some point. So yeah, just to kind of build off of everything that Stephanie has said, the entire idea is to create an atmosphere of legitimacy. You want your sequences to sound as organic and manually created as possible. Email is a very prevalent thing these days. People are using it for many different outlets. And you can clue in to specific practices. So you want to try to make your emails sound as original and authentic as possible. While some of the messaging here isn't going to be super unique, the entire idea that we're going to try to impress upon you is to be conversational. If you are reading out a business or technical manual to someone about how your platform or service works, people are going to lose interest very quickly. So you want to interact with them over email as closely as possible as if you were interacting with them in real life. So to start things off by viewing that profile, you're setting yourself up on the right foot by creating, again, an air of human interaction. You have gone and put in the effort to track this person down. You've clearly seen their profile, so you have at least a minimum knowledge about who they are and what they're doing. And the view profile is going to be enough for them to consider that the next immediate touch point is going to be in the same vein. So it's probably going to be manual as well. For the email, you want to build up on that. So the context opener that I mentioned here is relating directly to whatever your first touch point is. In this example for today, we're using LinkedIn. It can be a number of different things. With reply, LinkedIn's probably the most optimal and quickest option, but you can implement a call here if you need to, or if you know that your prospect list is using a particular platform, maybe Facebook is the way to go. Hitting them on those different verticals is a way to increase the odds of them understanding that you're putting in the time and research, and they're more likely to engage with you in that respect. So once you've kind of hit them with the context opener, you want to be as brief as possible when it comes to talking about yourself. These people, for the most part, if you're doing a cold campaign, don't know who you are, and to be quite frank, probably don't care that much. You are reaching out to them to fill a specific goal or need on their end. They just want to know what you can do for them. So don't spend a ton of time talking about how your company came about, or like what you guys do from a broad perspective. Just get to the point and address a particular issue, which is the asking questions pertaining to a potential pain point. The closer and the faster you can get to a key issue that they are actually experiencing, the closer you are going to be to getting to the actual conversion. And so the type of questions that you want to be asking are, hey, I noticed that you're in this particular industry. I was really wondering, how are you dealing with this current situation? Or how have you overcome this particular problem? And that's going to be a way to kind of promote interaction, promote engagement, and actually get a dialogue going. If all you're asking is, hey, do you want to hop on a call? This is what I can do. They don't actually need to respond in order to get the idea across that they're not interested. They can just kind of ghost you for weeks and weeks, and it's pretty prevalent. So you want to be clear, concise, and actually address a problem. And then in step 2, that's where you provide key details and information about how to actually fix that. And because you're the one who brought it up, you're the one who's bringing up this information, naturally you're that much closer to, again, that conversion point. In between the first email and the follow-up, you can throw in that connection request. Again, just building on the idea that this is a very manual process. You are doing this one at a time for each individual person. People really respect that and respond to that. The message itself, you can add something to the connection request, or you can leave it blank. It doesn't really matter, especially if it's in such close proximity to the actual email you're sending. Maybe you can give them a heads up that you are sending an email just so they can expect something. But you can play around with the actual content there. In the email, you don't want to sit on your laurels and just say that you can do something. That's probably the biggest issue I see when it comes to people writing emails. A lot of people will ask me how to follow up, and usually the emails that they show me are, hey, are you still interested? Let me know. That in itself, while it's good to remind them that you're there, isn't providing any new value, isn't providing any new information. So you're essentially hedging your bets on what you've written in the past. And if they didn't respond then, there's nothing here to kind of capture their attention anymore. So you want to tell them the how. How are you going to address the pain point that you brought up in the first step? Specifics are key, as many details as you can. And the more specific to the use case that they are experiencing themselves, again, the closer you are getting to that actual sale. I wouldn't put multiple examples in here just because it can get a little bit overwhelming. You don't want to throw too much at them at once. But one key, very specific option, and then you can wait until maybe a third step or even later down the line to hit on a different example, a different use case, provide more information.
And Josh, you and I have talked about this a lot, just kind of, how to look at, building out a sequence, especially with the content. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is to kind of look at it like it's almost like a story, and you're using each additional step to kind of build upon what you put in the previous email. So instead of, repeating what you said in a previous email, and Josh had mentioned using a use case, for example. A use case can be something that it can really highlight to your prospect what exactly you're capable of delivering for them. So if you were able to maybe increase a client's productivity at their company by 25%, that 25%, that could be what gets their attention and kind of gets their eyes on that email and gets them to say, hey, you know what, maybe they could do this for us. Let me, book a call or just have a quick meeting to really see what else they can do. So like we said, use it as a chance to kind of build that story and build upon what you put in that previous email and just consistently adding more to that thread.
Yeah, 100%. Another thing that adding this specifics does for you is if you're just saying that you can do something without backing it up with any information, anybody can do that. If you're willing to tell them exactly how to get to the point of success, and help them in this email already, you're showing that you know exactly what you're doing. You're showing experience. You're showing expertise. So you're setting yourself up as someone your prospects want to be working with. The example I talk about all the time on my more one-to-one calls is every pizza place that you've ever seen says that they sell the best pizza. There's no real evidence behind that, but they say it anyway because it's good marketing. But if you're willing to go the extra mile and provide more information, more details, obviously you're not going to be giving people slices of pizza over the internet. But if you can figure that out, I'm sure it would work. Yeah, it just goes a long way, adding in that extra detail.
I'd love to get free pizza.
I know. I am hungry. So let's go to step 3. And so picking up on that same story element, we are now in chapter 3. We don't want to tread on the same toes that or the same area that we just spoke about. We've just given the details. We've just given some examples about how we're going to help. Now we want to throw in a little bit of kind of supplementary information. Here is where I like to address specific questions, because we are working under the assumption that they have not spoken to you yet, obviously. So you have been on calls. You guys know exactly what your product, service, whatever the case is, you guys know what you're for. And people typically have the same questions when you actually hop on these calls. You can start this step by bringing up some of those points and kind of getting ahead of the curve. Some of these key frequently asked questions may be the kind of tipping point of whether or not they actually want to have the call with you. So if you kind of address these things now, maybe bring up pricing, perceived bonuses, all of those things can lead someone more to your side, as opposed to, again, just kind of repeating yourself and saying, are you still interested? Let me know. The example I like to give here is using reply itself. We not only sell reply on its own, but we have people like Stephanie and myself who are willing to hop on phone calls and do webinars like this to give information and help our community. Obviously, this is not an example that everyone can just plop into their own sequences, but any little bit kind of helps. Something that may be applicable to everybody, all of your clients, but looks like something extra on top of whatever it is you're normally selling. Could be a pricing thing, could be just kind of initial setup if it's some sort of software. Whatever the case is, most situations can find something that's a little bit unique and, again, go a long way to tipping the balance in your favor. If you don't have anything like that, and you don't feel like there's enough information just answering a couple of frequently asked questions, you can kind of take what I would normally put in step 4 or the 4th email into here. Use a completely different example or a different use case. Again, we work with email campaigns, and that can run anything from straight marketing to sales, cold outreach, monthly reminders, whatever the case is. So you can hit on a different vertical, and then if your original example didn't really resonate with them, maybe this new one will. And again, provide the how. You always want to lean into the how. Here we throw in a message. Again, not everyone on your contact list is going to be a super heavy email user. I am, you presumably all are, that's why we are here. But especially depending on the industry, people are different. People favor different technologies. So you want to hit them on all of those different fronts. This could be another place where you slot in a call instead if you're working or you're reaching out to an industry that is a little bit more hands-on or old school, whatever the case is. But the point is to hit them on a different front to, again, remind them that you're here, remind them that you're looking to get in touch, and make it sound conversational. You are speaking to these people as if they are in front of you. you're not giving a presentation, you're just explaining this to someone as kind of plainly as possible. There is one exception. If you're reaching out to a particularly tech savvy audience, you do not want to speak down to anybody. So in those instances, it's totally fine to use a lot of technical jargon. Specifically, if we go back to one of the email steps, we do have a reading level metric that we're always running. Usually, you don't need to consider this too much as long as you think that you would genuinely respond to your own email. You're probably on the right track. But in the instance that your reading level is kind of through the roof, as long as you know that the people that you're reaching out to are on the kind of same wavelength, they will know exactly what you're referring to when you use these more verbose terms. That's also completely fine. For our step 7 here, or this would be our traditional step 4 email, again, just as I said before, you just want to provide new examples. You do typically want to add in a brand new subject line here where our original 3 are going to be threaded together. This is going to be a soft reset. You don't need to reintroduce yourself from scratch and send them the exact same email as you did before, but you just want to remind them that you're here, give them a little bit of a refresher on what you're here to do, what you want them to do with this email, and again, lean into the how. The how is the most important thing, and 99% of the time, that's the thing that's missing from most people's emails. What is essentially irrelevant? Always the how. And then lastly is our breakup message. This is really your capstone. You can have more emails between step 7 and step 8 if you have more information to convey. If you have maybe attachments or videos or things like that, the tail end is usually where you'd want to throw them. But your breakup email is going to be your most tonally distinct. It needs to sound very different from the rest of your messages. And the idea is to essentially remind them or kind of shock them into thinking, oh, wow, this is actually a real person on the other end of the line. Maybe I should give the previous emails a little bit more of a look through. The content itself can vary drastically. I typically lean into sarcasm. Joking is usually a good thing. Some people will be completely blunt. I work with a client who is in the healthcare industry, and his final breakup email is, I'm assuming you don't care if da 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 da. And in the healthcare world, it's a pretty bold statement, but it's big, and it's kind of it does exactly what I'm talking about. It shocks people into being like, whoa, this guy has the balls to say that I don't care about whatever I'm working with, and it makes them look back and at least responds to this final message and gets them to engage in ways that they maybe weren't before.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note too. So I know Josh uses humor and sarcasm. Josh is also a funny and sarcastic guy.
Yeah.
So, and a question that we get a lot of the times is, how formal should these emails be? Can I insert a joke here and there? Like, really, how should I position it? And I think what it comes down to is knowing your audience, and B, writing in a way that reflects how you would naturally kind of speak as a person. With that being said, I don't recommend, throwing in slang or,
swearing,
words,
things like that. Yeah.
Acronyms that you would use in a text message, anything like that. But you can make it a bit less formal if that's the way that you normally speak, or if that's typically how your audience or kind of, that group of people that you are reaching out to, if that's how they'd be more likely to interact with you, then by all means.
Yeah, another thing that I want to mention here is in my one-on-ones, I've gotten to this step with people, and they will try to mimic exactly what I tell them. They will lean into the sarcasm. And I had a couple of individuals who have taken my exact examples and written in themselves, but then they got on calls. So the email itself worked. They captured the attention of the prospect. But then they hopped on calls, and they weren't the person that wrote the message. So there was a little bit of a very tonal dissonance there, and they just couldn't keep up with the persona that they created, and they ended up not being able to convert. So you do want to be yourself, but just try to make it distinct as far as the other emails go. You don't want to pretend you're somebody you're not. But yeah, as far as the emails go themselves, again, the three key tenets are going to be, you just want to be as kind of concise as possible. You want to be as conversational as possible, and you want to be consistent. So that comes into our essentially the scheduling. There is wiggle room as far as the days go, but this is typically the best practice. The wiggle room mainly lies around where you're going to be adding in your LinkedIn steps. You do want to keep it consistent, and you do want to regularly check in on those different fronts. But if you feel like your emails aren't going out fast enough, if you're on some sort of timeline, you can absolutely change these days around whenever you need to. Editing these settings will not disrupt your sequences at all, so you can make these changes whenever you need to. And more importantly, Zoom is a little annoying and I have to close this window. The main schedule can be played around with, but typically Monday to Friday, sending in the morning to around lunchtime is typically best. We found that the closer it is to quitting time, and this is obviously not for everybody, but generally the closer it is to quitting time, people get less and less done. They just want to kind of go home. So if you can get people in the morning when they're primed, they've had their coffee, they're ready to go, that's when you're going to get the highest interaction rates possible. There is some evidence showing that Saturdays and Sundays can be effective, but you really do want to pay attention to who's on your contact list, what kind of industries you're reaching out to, and things like that before you just decide to start emailing on weekends. It's very much in line with SMS messages in general. Some people will respond very positively to that, especially if you can make it seem organic and send manually sent. But other people will be put off of it and just kind of write off all of your other email steps. So I do recommend proceeding with caution when it comes to just throwing out on weekends. Try to do a little bit of research and make sure that your particular audience is receptive to that kind of thing.
Yeah, and again, it's about really knowing your audience too, right? If you're reaching out to maybe, kind of smaller businesses and maybe, CEOs of startups, they'll probably be more likely to check their emails over the weekend, where if you're reaching out to someone who, maybe works in a bank, they might be more likely to kind of really stick to that Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So again, really knowing your audience and, segmenting your campaigns and your list to really tailor to those people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I think
a couple things I wanted to note. So a lot of times, like I said earlier, when we're talking about emails and the number of emails that you want to have in a campaign, a lot of people will ask, what's the optimal number? We typically recommend 4 to 6. And the reason is most replies tend to come in after that third or fourth email that goes out. So, really important to keep in mind, because a lot of times, people put all their blood, sweat, and tears into that first email, and then they don't see a lot of hits on it or clicks or replies. And they think, okay, this is not working. Give it a bit of time, wait for some of those follow-ups to go out. And like we said before, really think about it as like building a story. You're building upon that last email that you sent out. So Josh, if you scroll down, so for example, like you guys will see on step 2, there's a subject line, but if you look at step 4 and step 5, there's no subject line there. So the way that this is set up right now is that step 4 email and that step 5 email, those are going to be threaded with that step 2 email. So your prospects will get that step 2 email. And then when they get those email follow-ups, they can just scroll down and see the previous emails that were sent. So again, if you're building on that story, they can scroll down and say, oh yeah, this is what they sent me a couple of days ago. You're just building upon that. And then if you go down a bit more to the soft reset, so that subject line right there. So what that is doing right now is creating a new thread. So like Josh said, he made that soft reset. So right now that step and that last email are going to be threaded together. You can create it so that your first email has a subject and all of the follow-ups don't have a subject, so they will all be threaded together. It's really what you think is going to work best, but we do recommend setting it up like this. So you have a few that are threaded together, and then when you do that reset, that email and the last email are put together.
Yeah, it's essentially by the third step, you want them to, because most people engage later on, whether it be to proceed with some sort of meeting booked, or maybe they've already, at this point, they've had enough and they just don't want the emails anymore. So that this is the point where typically they're going to engage one way or another. In that step 3, you want them to have all of the information that you would want them to have at this point for a general onboarding or whatever the case is, all together in one location. So you've got your reason for reaching out, you've got the pain point that you're addressing, you've got a specific example of how you're going to address it, and then you've got some supplementary information to round it out. All of it's going to be there in one easy to read package. If you have a thread that's like 5, 6 emails long, some of your information will get lost in translation. There's too much to dig through. And if this is the first point that they're actually looking at the messages and giving it a little bit of time, they may not be able to find exactly what they need. And the key, most important information can get lost. So separating your sequences into different threads has its benefits. Some people will go the route of adding in a subject line for every single step. Most of the time, I don't recommend doing this, because if you take a second to think of how you would react to a stranger sending you a bunch of one-offs, it's probably not the most positive. So you do want to take into consideration their kind of privacy, their organization, and be respectful of their space.
Yeah. And one other thing I wanted to mention, just a couple more things. We spent a lot of time talking about the content that you're going to put in these emails and, making sure that, your prospects have all that really important information. One thing to keep in mind is really focusing on the length of your emails as well. General rule of thumb, keep it to about 3 short paragraphs. People tend not to read past the 3rd paragraph. So if you have an email that is, 10 paragraphs long, odds are someone might skim it, and then they're just going to kind of go to the next email, especially when people are opening emails on their mobile phones or tablets. They're on the go. They're just quickly going through their email. So when you are thinking about that really important information, make sure that you have it at the upper part of that email, but that your emails are also short and concise.
Mm-hmm. So we do have a few questions in here. Yeah, we can touch on them all in a sec. But Stephanie, do you think there's anything that we've missed so far? I think we've got it all covered.
I think we have it covered. I think, we talked about this a bit, really knowing your audience. But also one thing that we really encourage is when you are creating your sequences, really tailor those sequences in terms of content to a specific group of people. So instead of taking a list of, 2,000 people and dumping them all into a really generic campaign, maybe you need to split up that list a little bit. Maybe you need to split that list up into groups of 200 and maybe segment based on their position with the company and really tailor the content to them. Because if you have, HR managers in a campaign that's really tailored towards marketing managers, those HR managers are probably going to opt out, mark you as spam, or just, not respond to the emails. You think that they might say, hey, I should forward this on to my HR department, but they probably won't. So really take the time to segment your lists and tailor those campaigns in terms of content.
Another thing that I want to mention, it's actually 2 things here. Just because you've set up a specific sequence does not mean there is no room for improvisation. The number one thing that I like to tell people is, don't just settle for your follow-ups, your stock templates, whatever the case is. Come into your people page and you can actually sort by these different columns here: deliveries, opens, views, replies. What I like to do is I like to click on views, so all of the people that have interacted the most float up to the top, and I can prioritize who I'm following up with and specifically how I'm following up with them. As a general rule of thumb, if I see, for example, I've delivered one message and they viewed 3+ times, that's usually an indicator to me that there is something there that people are interested in, but there wasn't enough to kind of, again, get them over to my side of the fence. So I'm going to maybe look at the information that I've already given them, take a little bit of time to research into their company, see if I can gather anything more specific that I can help them with. And then maybe I'll send them a one-off, or maybe I'll add that information in my LinkedIn touch point to, again, make it seem more genuine. Just because it's automated, and again, people do come to these things for the ease of use, but if you're really trying to drive your rates up and conversion is your number one goal, you are going to have to put in a little bit more elbow grease. And yeah, it's automated. The information's here for you to use and to kind of branch off into other aspects. In that same regard, if you don't want to do it manually, we do have triggers to automatically segment and move people into different campaigns, but you will have to kind of set up your different sequences in a way that kind of which branches to send them to. So it's a little tricky. You still have to do a little bit more research, but triggers can help you kind of automatically move people from sequence to sequence.
All right, so we have 7 questions. So I think now's probably a good time to get to those questions.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is from David. So David asks, what if we want a campaign with assigned contacts per sales rep? In other words, if we have 6 reps, we'd need to connect 6 different LinkedIn accounts. How should this be managed?
Mm-hmm. So that's, I think this is also tied into another question that we have down the line as far as what fully automated is going to be. Currently, our LinkedIn is pseudo-automated in the sense that when someone gets to a particular supplementary task step, so LinkedIn, a task will get created in the Chrome extension or in this page here. And then you have to go into those individual tasks and launch them from there. If you have the profile URL for the individual contacts, within the task, there will be a button that will instantly send out the view profile, the connection request, the in-mail, whatever the case is. We do it this way because you have to be logged into the LinkedIn account that you want those particular actions to come from. So if you are working on behalf of somebody else, if you're somebody's assistant or you're managing a team, and you're trying to run all of the tasks at once, it's going to get extremely confusing. So the connection request is going to go out from the LinkedIn account you are logged into on the browser you're currently using. So you would have to run, in your example, 6 different sequences, and you would have to make sure you're changing the login when you're doing the tasks for that particular rep. The automated version is supposed to work differently. And the main difference is, instead of having to manually go in and launch the tasks after they're done, it's supposed to just do it for you. We are actually hopping on a call tomorrow morning to gain a little bit more insight into the specifics of how this is going to work. So unfortunately, I will not be able to tell you right now if it's going to send from all of the proper LinkedIn. Maybe you connect them in advance. But that is something that we can address on a future call. We're not entirely sure how the devs have set it up at this moment.
Yeah, so I mean, what we do know is that we are going to be working with a partner to automate that process. But yeah, like Josh said, we will have more information within the coming, probably within the next couple of weeks. The way that it should be rolled out, it's probably going to go into beta first, which everyone has access to beta features in their account. If you go to settings and beta, if you enable beta features, you will have access to that. And the beta tab, it's updated regularly. So whenever a feature moves out of beta into wide release, it will be removed from the beta page. And whenever new beta features are available, they will be added there as well. But we will send out some more information about the full automation when it's closer to being released in beta.
100%.
All right. Do you have any recommendations for sourcing the right people both on LinkedIn as well as locating current email addresses? I'm currently using getprospect.com, hunter.io, and Clearbit, but often spending way too much time finding them. Additionally, recommendations on timing touch points are greatly appreciated. So I think we already touched on like the timing of those touch points in the sequence. So, I mean, in terms of, finding people on LinkedIn as well as their current email addresses, hunter.io is a great tool. I've heard some really great things about them, as well as Clearbit. We do have a LinkedIn search function within our Chrome extension. Every account has up to 200 free searches per month. So you can utilize that, and you can actually save, LinkedIn information directly into your reply account for your prospects there. There are a couple of instances where it may not pull their contact data or their email addresses. That would be if they don't have their corporate email associated with their LinkedIn account, which I do not. So I'm one of those people. Or if it's an invalid email address. And kind of going back to, current email addresses, whatever tool you are using, I would always recommend that you validate those email addresses. A lot of tools out there, I'm not going to mention any specifically, but I have gotten a lot of feedback from customers that I speak to, is that they advertise that they're current and valid email addresses, but then they bounce saying that they're not valid or they couldn't be found at that domain. So I would always kind of take that extra step and validate those email addresses anyway.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm just messaging someone in our Q&A here. I guess while I'm talking about it now, we can just answer the question. Joe asks, going back to the tasks, is it possible to filter the tasks by user? For example, if we have 3 sales reps, each with their own sequence, can you filter in the more tasks page to show only tasks related to a specific rep? And the answer is yes. So you're not going to be randomly shuffling through an infinite list of tasks, hoping to log into the correct LinkedIn account. You will be able to filter for exactly whose tasks you're looking at, when they were created, and assign the LinkedIn account appropriately. So yeah, no worries there. You will be able to filter.
Okay. I have a couple of questions that I'm going to get to. What do you think about adding links to emails? Do you think it might have an effect on deliverability? And I love talking about deliverability. So if you are going to be adding links to emails, limit the number of links that you have. So, things like multiple links in emails, as well as images, could set off red flags to email service providers. It could result in your emails landing in a junk folder, promotions tab, or even a spam folder. So it definitely affects deliverability. So I'll tell you a story. A couple years ago, I was sending emails out to current customers. So they were warm emails, and I had about 4 to 5 links in those emails. My reply rate all of a sudden went down really fast. So I took a look into it. I ran some tests. I found out that all of my emails were going to a promotions tab for Gmail recipients, and it was because I had multiple links. So I only have 1 to 2 links now, and I have a link in my email signature, and all those emails are being delivered directly to inboxes. So yeah, definitely limit the number of links you have in the emails. Links can be a really good way to send additional information. I mean, if you have a link to your website, a landing page, something that a customer or prospect can just click on and get more information on their own, it's a really great addition to your emails. So when you are thinking about adding links, just think about, what would give the most value to your prospect. Also, Allie has a question. How can we validate emails? Is that only available with a paid add-on? So within Reply, we do offer email validation. It is a paid feature, so a rolling subscription month to month. So I think for $20 a month, you can get, I think it's 10,000 email validation credits.
Yeah, let me pull it up. Give me a second. I think you're right.
So while Josh is pulling that up.
Well, I'm not the owner, so
you're
I can't
not the
actually
team
show
owner.
you. There you go.
Well, you can access pricing in your account. If you go to settings, plans, and billing and click on subscription, you will be able to see the pricing for email validation. So it is a paid feature within Reply. There are some free tools out there as well. So kickbox.io is one of them. Neverbounce is another one. So there are free tools out there that you can use. Whatever route you decide to go, if you decide to go the free route, if you decide to use the in-app email validation that we have with Reply, again, always validate those emails. It's really going to help with your deliverability.
And just again, everyone can see my screen, but it's in settings, plans and billing, and you can toggle this on. It's not instantly going to charge you for anything, but all of the options for the different monthly packages for validation will show up underneath.
All right. So there are a few other questions. Josh, do you want to jump on a few of them, or do you want me to keep reading them out?
If you read them out, I can answer them. I do see Lindsay asking for my beautiful templates, and there isn't anywhere that you can download them. But if you want, I can email them to you afterwards.
Yeah,
And
I've already taken down Lizzie's information to send it over. So
beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah, we do actually have, I'm not sure if it's in our support channel, but maybe it's on our Slate. But we do have an article that I wrote a little while ago going over the kind of bullet point form, the different options and pieces of content that you want to include on a step-by-step basis. I don't think it's as kind of involved as the live version that we're showing here, but it will give you a general idea of the types of information you should be including at each step, and just yeah, get you an idea of how to structure those.
Okay, so I'm just going to hop into the chat for a second, Josh. If you want to kind of go through some more of those questions.
Okay. So let me see here. Do you have best practices on the sequence list similar to the one that you're showing? I think this is in the same vein. Sunil, if you'd like, we can email you the content afterwards. I will kind of just scroll through again and kind of pause if people want to take screenshots or anything. And this is all going to be live and recorded on our YouTube channel. So if you want to just kind of hop over there afterwards and scroll through the video, all that information will be available to you all. Marina asks, can you share the date sequence for each step? So we have spoken about this a little bit already. Generally, you want to send the first step out as soon after your initial touch point as possible. Obviously, you don't want it to be like the moment you view their profile and you send the email. That just seems a little bit coincidental. But within the same day usually works, or the day after is fine. Then you want to give them 2 to 3 days before you send them that connection request and send them that second email. You want to be prompt and you want to be kind of quick with your follow-up, but you don't want to be obtrusive to the point where they're just going to get annoyed with you, because you do have to remember that these people are strangers. They have no idea who you are. There is going to be a little bit of skepticism when they see your emails for the first time. Typically, you want the third email to come within the same amount of time that you waited for the first step. So I like to have my first three, my first main thread, go out in its entirety over the course of a week and a half. That's usually the amount of time that I think it's not too abrupt, it's not too overwhelming. I'm being respectful of their time and of their privacy, while still being kind of, I'm still keeping up my correspondence with them so that they're not going to completely forget about who I am. So typically you want your step 1, 2, and 3 to all go out within 8 or 9 days. Then I would wait about a week before trying to re-engage. I am going to soft reset, so I'm going to give them a little bit of time to kind of mull the information over, if I'm not going to follow up with a more value-based proposition. But yeah, a week after that step 3 is usually the best time to kind of re-engage. Again, you don't want to sit on these messages for so long that they just completely forget about what your messages were or who you are. So usually a week is good timing there. And then if you are going to end the sequence, waiting about another week to a week and a half is also good. Waiting a month is a little bit too long. Again, it's stagnating. People are going to just forget about who you are. So you do want to keep it consistent and constantly update them. So a week is usually pretty decent timing. If you're going for a more kind of just update approach, monthly is probably the best practice there as well. Was there something you wanted to add there, Stephanie?
Yeah, I actually have a question from our chat. This is from Nicole. So Nicole says, any thoughts on how the email approach would change for someone in PR doing outreach to journalists? Not looking for conversations per se, rather to raise interest for covering my clients and upcoming stories.
For those instances, I think being as upfront about what you're trying to get is probably the best way to go about it. You're reaching out to people that are doing the same thing that you're doing. So while they may be a little bit more cynical when it comes to it, they will have an eye for the genuine opportunities. So as long as what you're offering is legit, I'd be upfront about it and just say what you have to say. There's no reason to beat around the bush. Yeah, usually that gets the job done. I've worked with a lot of people in that same kind of space. I've also worked with a lot of people that they're in the buying, they're looking to buy houses or buy companies, whatever the case is. It's also best to kind of just get straight to the point. You want to provide a little bit more context as to who you are and what your kind of qualifications are, so that you just come across as more legitimate and someone that they should be taking seriously. But yeah, straightforward, just get to the point right away.
Right. So another question. There are quite a few of them here.
We're not used to so many questions. Usually we're
I
just
know
talking.
usually people are really quiet.
Yeah.
I'm like, how are we going to get to all these before we're supposed to
we like
jump
it.
off
We're not
at 2?
complaining.
No. Does reply.io integrate into any other SaaS? Definitely. It really just depends on what you're looking to integrate with. We do have some native CRM integrations within the platform. Salesforce, Copper, there we go, Close.io, ZendaSell, and HubSpot. So HubSpot is the newest one. So Salesforce and HubSpot are both two-way native integrations. They're free to integrate within your accounts. If you're looking for things beyond those native integrations, we actually connect with up to 2,000 different apps via Zapier. And it's pretty simple to use. So if you're looking to connect with some other platforms, a lot of our customers are using, something like Constant Contact, and they're using Zapier to connect to Reply. So that's always an option as well.
Yeah, and you can even do a direct Zapier step within your sequences as well for a little bit more manual control. But yeah, for the most part, Zapier is going to be your go-to. We do have an API section if you're at all in the know in regards to that stuff. I think myself, and I don't mean to speak for you, Stephanie, but I don't know anybody directly aside from our developers that's super into the API. So if you're already working in that space, the API is available to you.
Yes. Okay, so Josh, I'm just kind of circling back to the question that Joe had about tasks. So Joe says, to clarify regarding filtering tasks by user, at present this is not possible, but will it be in an update? Is that correct?
You should be able to currently sort by the rep. I don't think I have any tasks in here, but let's do a direct follow-up via email for that one. You should be able to sort by the specific rep. Yeah, that should be a thing.
Okay, so I'll just make a note for Joe and then we can follow up.
Yeah. Also, I'm going to go away for a second because my laptop is going to die.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so, oh, thanks for your email, Joe. All right. So I'm just going to make a note of that. Okay, so I'm going to hop back into the chat right now. Okay, so no more questions there. Okay, so we'll hop back into the Q&A. Can you offer any basic standard metrics for LinkedIn outreach, step approach like this, straight email approach, and hybrid mixed approach? Hey, Dwight, as of right now, we don't have kind of standard metrics for kind of a hybrid approach like this. That's definitely something that we will kind of obtain as we and our users are sending out more campaigns, and we can definitely look into those averages and things like that. Unfortunately, right now, we don't have them.
I have no idea what you said, but I agree.
just about metrics for like LinkedIn campaigns or kind of like this hybrid approach that we're talking about right now, just kind of standard metrics, which we unfortunately don't have right now.
Just going back to Joe super quick, I believe the options to sort are in the Chrome extension. I do know 100% that you can sort by who the task belongs to in the Chrome extension, which is free and operates very similarly to this page here. it was mainly designed, our entire task suite was mainly designed for the Chrome extension, which is why it may be missing from here. But yeah, it would be in the Chrome extension 100%. Do we have any more questions?
There are a few there. I'm just actually taking some notes because there were some attendees who want some specific information mailed to them. So I'm just taking some notes right now if you want to hop into those questions.
I think there's only one here that we haven't addressed. Juliana asks, is it possible to divide a contact list between the different team members automatically? And that is a big yes. So if I go to the people page, if you are on the public team edition, there's going to be an owner column where you'll be able to see kind of who each individual contact is assigned to. You can run a filter set for owner, and then you can choose to either exempt one of your team members if you're just trying to get a list of everybody beside those individuals, or you can look for each rep one by one. So all of that is automatically sorted for you. You just need to find it in the filter. If you do want to keep those filters saved, you can always change the name here. Save the Stacy filter, for instance. Not Statch, we want Stacy. And then this filter will be forever saved in the More drop-down menu for future use. So I can always come back to it. And I believe we've hit everything else that we have here. If we have multiple sales reps and do not want to use LinkedIn in the campaign, what's the question? What are you trying to do? My apologies.
I mean, you can definitely keep it as, just utilizing emails in the sequence if you don't want to use LinkedIn steps. If you have multiple sales reps, I guess it depends on really kind of what your account configuration looks like. So if you want to attach like multiple sending addresses to a campaign and have those emails come from different email addresses, or if you have different users. So there's a couple ways that you can do it within your account.
Yeah, so you can create a separate sequence for each rep individually, or you can have all of your rep emails assigned to one sequence and kind of round robin the sends that way. Having a separate sequence for each rep and then assigning the email address manually gives you a little bit more control over assigning the contacts to a specific person. But if you're just kind of trying to get everyone in the same general pool, this option works as well. It will be completely up to you. But yeah, to Stephanie's point, all of these other step types are completely up to you. If you don't feel comfortable reaching out to your audience on LinkedIn or sending them calls or SMS, whatever the case is, just because we have the steps available does not mean you need to use them. Use whatever that you're comfortable with and whatever you believe that your prospects will respond to the most.
So there was some clarification. Can we manage the campaign from one account? So multiple emails, one per rep and just one user. So definitely when Josh was showing the multiple email addresses per sequence, that would be the best way to go.
Yeah, and so the emails that you have available to you for assignment are going to be tied to whatever email addresses you have connected in that particular login. So you would need to go to settings, email accounts, and connect whatever other reps that you have here before you start adding in as many email addresses as you'd like. Do take into consideration the subscription that you're on, and if you need to move email addresses from one account to another, you can bring that up with our support team via the live chat, or you can reach out to Stephanie or I directly, and we'll be able to help you out with that. It does take a little bit of customization there, but definitely possible.
Yeah, so we only have a couple minutes left. So David, yeah, we can definitely hop on a quick kind of one-on-one. My calendar's pretty busy today and tomorrow. But if you want, you can just shoot me an email. It's Stephanie, so Stefanie at reply.io. Shoot me an email and then we can definitely schedule some time to kind of have more of a one-on-one to set up those multiple email accounts. Thanks everyone for joining. Just so you guys know, this session will be available on Reply's YouTube channel, probably within the next few minutes. All of our live sessions are available there. So if you want to kind of take a look back, we have tons of content there. Also, we will be sending out, Josh, maybe you and I can take a look into, the attendee list, maybe seeing what campaign templates we can send out to everyone who attended. And if you guys have any questions, again, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You could reach out to myself, so that's Stephanie with an F at reply.io, or Joshua at reply.io. You can also reach out to our support team via live chat. Their response time usually under 5 minutes, so they're a great resource for you as well.
Absolutely. And thank you all for coming out, asking us questions and engaging with us. And we super appreciate the help. We hope to see you guys at future calls.
Talk to you soon, guys. Bye.
Bye.